You're listening to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. Before we get started, make sure you check us out on Facebook at Range Minded Podcast. There we post photos, articles that go along with the episodes, and you can interact with us. This is episode 75, a bit of a free-for-all episode where we talk about some of the things that are going on in the firearms world, stuff that's been on our mind, and we talk about some things coming up in the future. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy episode 75 of Range Minded, the free-for-all episode of September 2019. Hello and welcome to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. My name is Mark Long and I am joined by...
the one and only Steve Zimmerman.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing okay. It's been kind of a crazy day for me today, but it's been good.
A crazy day for you, but now it's time to rest, relax, and talk about guns. That's
exactly right. I gotta find my zen now.
Yeah.
I ran into some troubles today, so...
Oh, really?
My mind has been really occupied with just trying to do some stuff at home and do one thing, and then something else pops up that I have to fix, and then something else pops up that I have to fix.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of cascading from there. It was pretty awesome.
When it rains, it pours. I'm sorry to hear that, my friend.
And I think that's exactly what the problem was, is when it rained, it poured.
Well, unfortunately, we're not going to get much happier in the start of this episode. This is going to be kind of a multi-part episode. Gonna call it the great free-for-all of September 2019.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of kind of sad stuff going on. Well, not sad. Well, I guess it is sad depending on how you look at it. But we'll try to end on a high note. How about that?
I like it.
So we're just gonna bring up a couple of random topics that are going on in the gun world, and just kind of go from there. So hopefully you're ready to go along for the ride.
Ready or not. They're going to have to just keep up. That's it.
Yeah, you're just going to have to keep up. So, but for those of you who, maybe have short attention spans, this one will be for you because we'll be switching topics every little while. So
there may be some weed walking too.
Of course not. Of course there is. But the first thing I wanted to talk about, which I know is going to get you all fired up, Beto O'Rourke.
Oh, yeah. You must have listened to the debate the other night.
I didn't actually listen to the debate. I just saw the headline, and I go, you got to be kidding me. No way somebody actually says that.
I'd rather put pencils in my eyes.
Did you watch the debate?
No.
I didn't think so. Didn't think
I probably should. In reality, I should be more well-rounded and understand their logic and argument, but I don't think I can understand their logic or arguments.
Well, I've always seen a lot of politicians dance around gun control, whether for it, against it, whatever. There's really never any straight up, clear cut answer. And if you hadn't seen the debates or maybe lived under a rock in the last couple days, Beto O'Rourke, who was a presidential candidate out of Texas, literally said, "Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15s, your AK-47, anything that is designed to kill somebody on a battlefield." To massive applause.
Yeah, well, massive applause of people regurgitating the same content.
Right. But man, just that blatant.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing. So he is probably far more vocal than the other ones, and I think it's because he's struggling. I don't think he's going to get close to the nomination.
Yeah, I don't think he's even got 5% of the share of chance.
So I think he's spitting out this stuff that makes him get noticed to hopefully get some votes, or at least some attention and some donations. But it's not going to happen. Who's he going to send? So I think were we talking about this? Maybe it was somebody else I was talking to. Who are they going to send to confiscate the guns? Local cops? I know in my area the police force will not go door to door.
Right.
Will not go door to door.
Just not going to happen.
They're too smart for that, for one thing, and everybody knows everybody around here. Nobody's going to do it. And the other thing about the logic is, so they're talking about banning guns because they're weapons of war, but then they're going to send people using guns made for weapons of war to enact tyranny on the people that have these guns for defense, which is the whole purpose of the Second Amendment. Is to keep that stuff from happening.
Kind of ironic, isn't it?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it was just, I was just kind of like, my jaw was on the floor. Like, somebody actually said that. And, people were obviously, depending on how you lean politically, and if you're for gun control, you're going to be cheering about that. But it also just showed, to me at least, how much people, or how little people, understand firearms.
Did you watch any of the debate between Ted Cruz and Alyssa Milano?
I did not.
Did you know that even happened?
No, I did not.
So I think it's kind of a lame thing, but I was watching bits and pieces of that, and I couldn't watch the whole thing because, I don't know, there's just too much drama. But so right out of the gate, she brings up gun control and
Sure.
and assault rifles. She quoted Ronald Reagan saying something like AK-47s and other machine guns have no place in society.
Sure.
But he said machine guns. He didn't say semi-automatic. And she says, well, if Ronald Reagan says it, basically, I'm paraphrasing here. If Ronald Reagan said it, then why are you guys so for it? And so he had to break down what's the difference between assault rifle and automatic and semi-automatic.
Right.
Which I really didn't go, I don't think it went anywhere.
I doubt it, unfortunately.
That's why I think it was a complete waste of time. I don't know why he even bothered, because I don't think very many people watched the debate between those two. And
sure.
She's not going to change her mind because Ted Cruz actually did educate, spent time trying to educate her. But that's the thing is they don't want to hear anything. Like, they have this feel-good argument about, they're going to take these machine guns, these weapons of war. And we've already said it before, there's not one military unit in the history of the world that would ever or has ever issued an AR-15.
Right.
Not one. Never would they do it.
No. And, it's, people don't understand the difference between select fire, and semi-automatic firearms, and, all the things that gun owners usually, traditionally know. And that's the sad thing, I think, is that people who are on the other side of this argument don't want to learn. I think every and any gun owner would be willing to educate somebody on the other side if they asked about it. You know what I mean?
And I think that's why it's so important when we talked about take somebody shooting last time is you need this. You don't have to go through this dialogue about, all this BS. Just take them shooting so they can actually feel and experience what gun owners enjoy. It's not this emasculating event that, they say, I can't remember who, somebody said it about, well, an AR-15 is just because you're lacking in manhood, basically is what they're saying. And then Dana Lash says, well, I own 14 AR-15s. What are you going to say about that?
Yeah. Well, and that's a common argument, unfortunately, but it just doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't. And it's so frustrating. But the only way to combat it, no pun intended, I guess, is to really invite people to go shooting and share your love for the Second Amendment. That's, I think, the only way to really get it down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's really nothing else you can do. You can't argue. I mean, you don't want to, as interesting choice of words, but you don't want to be combative. You don't want to, come back at somebody as hard as they are with you, although that's kind of sometimes a challenge. You can try talking to people and educating them, but that doesn't seem to work as well either. Although, I think sometimes that does help, but I think, the best way is to just take people shooting. Yeah. And show how safe it can be, and how much attention you pay to safety, and how responsible you can be as a gun owner.
Yeah, it's that is key. Like, showing them that, like you're saying, showing them how to be safe and how safe it can be, and the joys of just shooting. Like, I don't know. I guess it's easy for us to say.
It is, and it's a lot. The other thing about to go back to how this would actually happen is there's no record of who owns an AR and who doesn't. I mean, one of the things, it's the most popular rifle in America. There's millions of ARs all over the place. From in every state, just about, whether they're California or New York compliant or not. You can go online and you can see pictures of people sharing pictures of their ARs from New York and California. With certain features, quote unquote, or not, and they're all AR-15s, and how are you going to know who owns them and who doesn't?
I think they figured there was, how many was it? 4 million ARs. There's got to be more than that.
I say that's got to be a low number.
I can't remember what the statistic was, but definitely, like Scalia says in Heller, like you can't ban something that's in common use.
Right.
And when there's maybe it was 40 million ARs across the United States.
I think that would probably be a more accurate.
Judging how many I have lost in the past, that's probably closer.
There could be 4 million in Idaho for all we know.
There could be 4 million in the bottom of the lake.
Maybe.
But so I think that falls under the definition of a common use firearm that cannot be made illegal under Heller.
Right. It could be. But that's kind of beyond our pay grade, I think. It's just such a convoluted situation. And, it's interesting because I've been finding that people are talking about it more openly, which I guess is kind of a good thing, but there's not really much room to have a dialogue. At least in my opinion, it seems it's hard to have a dialogue, and it's hard to say, well, actually, kind of show people the truth, because really, if you look at the numbers, I mean, rifles account for 4% of all gun deaths. We've done the math and done the numbers on this before, and there's plenty of information out there.
I think it's 0.2%.
Oh, it's even less than that.
I'm pretty sure it's below 1%.
Yeah, and we've talked about how 2/3 of all the gun deaths in America are suicides, which is unfortunate, and a tragedy all on its own.
And that is awful. That is absolutely awful.
And that still leaves 10,000 gun deaths a year that aren't, suicides. But it's just, I think that it's a symptom of a larger problem, or a more convoluted problem with multiple sources. And I think a lot of people are just quick to point to what it is and blame the symptom rather than the root cause, Yeah,
I agree. I think it's just an easy Band-Aid, like you're saying, there is something wrong with society. Like, I don't know what it is, but there is a major problem with violence, even though violent crime has dropped 50% in the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
There
since
is
the 70s,
a problem.
or I think since even the 70s.
Yeah, it's gone down. No thanks to any kind of gun bills that's ever taken place, because they were going down before the Clinton assault rifle ban.
Right. Well, and that's a great segue, because I was going to bring up the 1994 ban. It's been 25 years since that ban was enacted, actually. And I mean, you can look at study after study that say that there was no demonstrable difference in gun crime or any crime. I think that assault weapons ban, it was contributed with.
Yeah, and if you hear the reduced numbers, they changed the criteria. So, I think we talked about this before. They changed whether it be the amount of people involved, or they changed a segment of the statistics to kind of pad their side of the argument, which gun people do too, I'm sure. Like, that's just kind of the thing about being so passionate. You want your side of the argument to be substantiated, and so you'll find ways to make it substantiated.
Right.
But nonetheless, I grew up through that period. I remember that period. I remember how frustrating that was. And I remember 2004 when that sunset, and how crazy cheap stuff got and available it was. It was fantastic.
Yeah. Well, what was it like? Tell me a little bit, because I mean, in 1994, I was not old enough to buy a firearm. We'll put it that way, by a long shot.
Well, neither was I, but I was still, for some reason, I still enjoyed listening to politics and
sure
and stuff as a kid. Like,
but you kind of remember what it was like. It seems like, right?
Yeah. I remember going to gun shows as a kid with my brother and seeing ARs, DPMS. That was the big thing, was a DPMS. You had to buy a Colt or a DPMS.
That was it.
Because there really wasn't that many other manufacturers around.
Sure.
And then after the Clinton ban, like, you'd see magazines once in a while at gun shows and stuff, but they were at a premium. You'd never saw anybody take an AR out for sale, ever. There were just a few guys that would have. I don't know if my brother even had one. He liked to buy and sell guns a lot when I was a kid. He wasn't a kid. He's much older than I am. Just to put that on the record. But yeah, I remember. And then once that sunset in 2004, suddenly there were all these manufacturers that had already like tooled up because they knew in 2004 that was going to be done away with.
Right.
And so they were stockpiling, making things ready to go and happen. And then all of a sudden the market got flooded. Things got super affordable. And it really did feel like, hey, we got a segment of our freedoms back that didn't need to be reduced.
Yeah. And that assault weapons ban has been sunsetted for 15 years now. And crime is still going down.
Still going down. And AR-15s, sometimes they get used in a mass casualty event, but not as many are used in defensive.
Yeah, and it mainly a main weapon that's used, I think, are handguns.
Yeah,
and
well, was it Tallahassee the other day? There was a mass stabbing, wasn't that? Is that last week?
Could be
Tallahassee, Florida. Yeah. So obviously, what are we going to do next? That guy should have had no kitchen knives available to him.
Well, look at England. I mean, that's kind of where they're at now.
Yeah, which is going nowhere. Like,
yeah,
so ridiculous.
Well, and speaking of mass shootings, I found this article that said, and it's from a psychology website, actually, believe it or not.
Interesting.
The headline is "Study finds that fame-seeking mass shooters tend to receive more media attention."
Say that again one more time for me.
So, a mass shooter who's deciding to act out a mass shooting to seek out like fame and notoriety and stuff,
right,
receives more media attention, according to this study, than mass shooters who do not, are not doing it for fame and notoriety.
And that's really,
and that,
yeah, I can understand that.
And that they found these researchers found that that what's the mass shootings that have been on the rise have been ones that are from people who are seeking fame and notoriety from the media.
Yeah, I think ever since Columbine, which happened, what was that, 98?
99, I believe.
99?
Yeah.
It seems like ever since then, and we talked about this a long time ago, that, the first school shooting in the United States was in the 1700s.
Right.
When some Indians came in and late 1700. Now I have to look again. It's in one of our episodes. I promise I did the homework then. But yeah, so hundreds of years ago. So they're not new. It's not a new thing. But I think since Columbine, that's when there was a rise, because those two kids, man, they plastered their faces everywhere. They got a lot of attention.
It was wall-to-wall coverage.
And there's some people with some deranged perspective as far as fame that said, oh, I could do that better.
Yeah. Yeah, and they try to one-up each other or whatever. And, it's an interesting from this study or whatever. Like, again, like I said, it's from a psychology website, that I found this study. So it's not necessarily slanted in one way or the other, I don't think. But this quote was kind of telling, is that fame-seeking shooters incur high victim counts and receive disproportionately higher levels of media coverage. As such, the media is reinforcing their initial motivations and potentially contributing to copycat criminality.
No.
Yeah.
Why do you think so many like, I don't want to call them journalists, because maybe they are. Some of these talk show guys, like, they refuse to share any names of shooters, and they will not. Ben Shapiro, like, he is adamant that he will not even allude to somebody's name in anything like this.
Yeah.
Which I think is good, because they don't deserve to have any kind of fame given to them, because it's disgusting.
Yeah. And you think about it, when people, a lot of people watch TV or on the internet, you get all that media coverage, and yeah, of course it's going to, make somebody think, oh, if I want to be famous and I want to be, go down in history as this, then this is the way to do it. That they found that, these people, like, kind of a profile of mass shooters who want to seek fame and notoriety and all that are, they perceive themselves as victims, socially marginalized, usually suffer from mental illness, and have suicidal ideations, which is kind of obvious if you think about it.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think, that there's a lot of people, psychologists or people like that, they say, well, make sure they're talking to kids in high school, like, your first day of school, make sure you say hi to everybody, try and include as many people as possible. If you see somebody that is kind of aloof or whatever, just go out of your way to say hi. And sometimes I mean, in my finite understanding, I could see how that might stop it,
Sure.
or slow somebody down. And now my mind goes to Billy Madison when the guy he picks on was like crosses his name off the list, right?
Oh, right.
Said sorry.
Yeah, because he apologized. But I mean, I
Yeah.
think that's, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know if these people have been like cyberbullied or if they're just have mental health issues, or I think it's a convoluted problem. You can't just pin it on one thing.
I think it's really compounded with a bunch of different things, and I think it's a very complicated issue. And I think that's one reason why it's so hard to have an honest conversation about not necessarily gun control, but trying to keep guns out of the hands of people that shouldn't have them.
Right.
That is a really hard thing to figure out, because you can't. We could talk about private sales and universal background checks, but the problem is that's creating a database of who has what gun when, because it has to be recorded somehow.
Right. It turns it into a registry, and then that's just not a good thing.
You're infringing on a right there, because it states that we cannot, like the government, it's illegal for the government to have records of who has what kind of gun. It is illegal. And so there's just so many things. So, okay, so what do we do if they have suicidal tendencies, or if they constantly harm a family member, whatever? How do we keep them from going that direction? I don't know.
Yeah, because, and I think, I'm not supporting them, but I think that's kind of where the thinking behind red flag laws come in, is that, you're able to stop something before it happens.
And I can understand the logic there. Like, I totally get that logic.
That's not the way to do it.
No, but and there's so many avenues of abuse there that I can see, like right off the bat. Like,
oh, for sure. That's the issue. Is that it's so
how hard would it be for an ex-wife to say, well, he was abusive and he's got all these guns and he's going to hurt somebody,
or a neighbor, a neighbor that maybe you don't get along with or something. It could be anybody, or even somebody, some troll on the internet.
Well, and that's what they've talked about. I was listening to some of these House committee hearings on some of this stuff, and that's exactly what they alluded to. They wanted to expand it open to doctors and household, what do they call them? Household members. Well, then they had to, what's the definition of a household member? Anybody that stayed in your house for more than so many weeks within the last 2 years. You could have a roommate that was a complete slob and or hated your guts somehow. He knows you have a gun and he wants to have your house swatted. He calls the cops and says, hey, this guy's going to do something. When you don't have any problems whatsoever, the other guy is the issue.
Yeah, there's no recourse for somebody.
No.
There's no defense for you to say, hey, actually, I'm a normal, sane human being.
And I could almost go for red flag laws if there was a very, very stiff penalty for false accusations, like a felony charge and prison time, because you're jeopardizing somebody's rights.
Well, and you're basically, taking the time away from law enforcement that they could be using that time to do something more worthwhile. Or, it's like calling 911 as a prank or whatever. It's the same thing. Well, except, you're impacting somebody else.
Yeah.
So,
and not to mention, we've talked about this before, the other problem with red flag laws is the complete disregard for any kind of due process. And the other thing with these red flag laws is they go to court and you can't even defend yourself in court. Like, you're not there in that hearing.
Right.
So how is that just and fair?
Yeah. It's
super scary.
It's a scary situation in that regard too. And another thing about, and I think we've talked about, the multiple kind of problems that I think, gun violence is a symptom of is, mental health, the media, social media, but, gang violence is something that, and violence in poverty-stricken areas. I mean, we've talked about, how, some of the places with the strictest gun control laws have the worst gun crimes, and, nobody talks about what to do about people stuck in poverty or, gang violence or anything like that. It's always just take the guns away. But what makes you think that criminals who are already not supposed to have guns are going to give those guns away, or you know what I mean? How are you going to get those guns away from?
Well, and that makes me think. So, Friday was yesterday was crazy for me too.
Uh-huh.
My son decided to get into a car accident.
Oh, awesome!
And it was just, it was a fabulous way to start the morning. Nobody got hurt. Like it was just a bad phone call to get because.
Oh yeah, that's terrifying.
It's awful. Anyway, I was talking to the local sheriff's deputy here who showed up, and you've seen kind of where I live. Like you understand the area. Anyways.
Yeah, it's a rural area.
Pretty rural, kind of timid. A lot of people know everybody, so that there's usually pretty good community going on.
Yeah.
Well, if you go from my house, or let's just say from Rigby, if you go to the east a few miles, that's Ryrie. It's a pretty small town, but they have a huge drug problem.
Really?
Like heroin and meth, and
wow.
And they're getting some gang problems there too. And we're talking a town that's like, I don't know, 1,200 people. And then you go to the west on the other side of I-15, there's a town called Roberts, which is like a very small agricultural area. And they're already having problems with MS-13.
Really?
In Roberts. And that's like 500 people in this town. Like it is small.
That's insane.
And talking to him, and they've tried to, root him out. Idaho Falls is having a huge gang problem. And I think what they do is they see these opportunities in these accepting, because I would say we're pretty accepting here. Expect people to do the right thing, and and I think that in a way is a detriment to some communities because we're just oblivious.
Well, you just don't. It's not something you think about. Growing up and living in a city, you have to kind of keep your wits about you a little bit more because there are just more people in general. More people overall, and in a rural town, it's a little bit smaller. It's less people, so you don't have to worry about that as much. You know what I mean?
And I think they like those areas for that very reason, because they could be running drugs. I-15 goes from Mexico to Canada.
Wow!
So what a great corridor to traffic whatever you want. Yeah,
Illinois. In Illinois, I-55 was the same way.
Yeah, it's crazy. And this is a small town, like Idaho in general. If we just take Idaho as a whole, we can see like Boise and Meridian and Caldwell. We can see what's going on over there. Like since even the 2 years I was over there, like it has gotten crazy. Like
the world is changing.
So many more murders and shootings between the cops and like all this stuff. And that was just in a 2-year span. And maybe I got a little more hypersensitive to it being over there more often. I don't know. That could be it too. But there is a violence problem in America, or at least a lack of respect for fellow citizens. Maybe that's a better way to put it.
Could be, yeah.
Sorry, that was my rant.
No, that's okay. But yeah, that's kind of, like I said, it all kind of wraps around each other. It's very convoluted. There's a lot going on. But gang violence is a significant problem, and violence in poverty-stricken areas is a big problem. And there's, no real talk about what to do about that.
And it's sad because who really suffers from, let's just take urban areas, and where I'm going to go with this. Who suffers the most from gang crime? The Black community does, because that's who really are in the projects or whatever, where these gangs are really embedded. And it's not that they're more susceptible to crime or violence or whatever. That's just the way it is. And I don't know even where to go from there without me sounding like racist or bigoted or whatever. But that's not where I'm trying to go at all. It's just that those urban areas really suffer. So why aren't these politicians that say that they really care about these Black communities, why aren't they doing something to lift up the community? Instead of, they don't care about the crime. They don't care about gang violence. They care about the white guy who shot up, a shopping plaza with a handgun.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do.
Then the occurrence of that is a small percentage of, like we talked about suicides or, gang crime or anything like that. And the thing is too, is you go back to where these cities and urban areas have the, strictest gun control. It shouldn't matter what color you are, where you live, anything like that. Everybody has the right to defend themselves.
Yeah, it says it in the Constitution.
Yeah.
At least the way I read the Constitution, we have the ability to defend ourselves and our loved ones and our property.
Yeah, and so it's just a sad thing all around, but
it's difficult.
Yeah,
it's a difficult problem.
And I think that's part of it. I think like we talked about, all the mental health stuff is a part of it, and it's not one thing. I think the guns are the symptom of a larger problem or multiple problems altogether.
Yeah, it's what's making manifest of something else that's been an issue for a long time.
Right.
And honestly, how the hell it could be even the food that we eat just causing problems with our brain. I have no idea.
Yeah, we don't have the answer.
It could be. It could be the processed foods that they alter crap too. Yeah. And I'm not some crazy conspiracy theorist. Like
left I don't your tinfoil hat off today.
Yeah, I'm not like super crazy like Monsanto's trying to kill the population. Like I don't go there. And they may be. I have no idea. I can say that now. They're no longer in Idaho. So.
Well, now we're getting into the weeds a little bit.
That's okay, because they make weed. They make weed killer too.
Oh, good. Well, so let's flip it on its head a little bit. Let's say, what, if any, gun laws would you suggest maybe to help with gun violence? If you had to make any kind of a compromise with somebody, with anti-gun groups or something like that, what would you compromise on? It's kind of a hard question to ask, and the answer could always be nothing.
It is,
but
well, I think one thing that can be done is actual enforcement of the laws that we already have. I don't think we need any more laws. I think we need to make the penalties way stiffer for gun crime, and maybe that's not the answer. I don't know. We kind of go through like these nonviolent drug offenders. They talk about whatever criminal reform or whatever, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Some of those nonviolent drug offenders may have not had a gun on them, but their buddy was doing a drug deal with a gun. I mean, so that there's a lot of confusing things that go on here. But I think if we actually enforce the gun laws that we have, I think we probably have sufficient laws on the books. But they just need to be used, not plead out. And I'm for the death penalty too. Like I'm not. If it fits the crime, and they've had enough time to prove without a shadow of a doubt of his guilt or her guilt, then they need to be executed.
Yeah, I mean, is
that too cruel?
I don't know. That's not for me to decide. But yeah, it's just I'm not suggesting that we start thinking of ways to compromise or whatever, but it was just kind of an interesting thought experiment about, what would you be comfortable with, if anything? I think that, like you said, that the laws we have, I think, need to be enforced better. And I think there's a lot of flaws within those laws already, Yeah.
I think the legal system has too many loopholes and I know everybody's innocent until they're proven guilty, but sometimes it's obvious that they're guilty, but they find a way to plea out.
Sure.
I think that's unfair to the justice system.
Well, and the other thing is that, the gun laws vary so wildly from state to state to state. And
there's federal gun laws though. Like there's stuff on the books federally that I think apply to any of those state infractions that happen.
Right. But it's still, I mean, it's hard to make anything regulated and across nationwide when gun laws are so varied from different states or whatever, because you could move to somewhere new, and if you don't do your research, you could be breaking the law just by being in that state with a certain kind of gun.
That's true. Something that would really be an interesting experiment, which will never happen, is if, say, Chicago, since we know that one's got such a high level of crime, if they accepted, constitutional carry, it'd be really interesting to see what happens to that crime rate if it would go up or down. I personally think it would go down because the bad guys would know that, hey, these aren't soft targets anymore.
Well, what's interesting about that is, so, obviously Illinois was one of the last states to enact concealed carry. And I remember being there and, after it was passed, hearing on the news, you'd hear a lot of defensive gun uses, believe it or not. You still hear them every once in a while. I don't think they're as newsworthy necessarily in Illinois now, but you'd see online or hear about news stories of people defending themselves with firearms, which I thought was interesting. Hearing that kind of stuff, and I don't know if there's been any kind of statistical research done on whether or not it's, deterred crime or anything like that. But the fact that people are reporting on that, I thought was fascinating.
Oh, there's got to be research. In fact, I'm going to jump on while we're talking and see if there's got to be a comparison from like 10 years before they did concealed carry
compared
and
to
after.
now. So here's my other part of the thought experiment, though. If the anti-gun side was willing to allow national reciprocity or the Hearing Protection Act to remove silencers from the NFA, or to maybe repeal the NFA altogether, what would you be willing to give in return?
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
It's never going to happen, but it's just an interesting thought experiment because
so I would always joke when I'd be helping customers at the store, and I'd say, hey, I would be all for legalizing marijuana if it was piggybacked on the national, the NFA, the Hearing Protection Act. That's what I was trying to get out there. I'd be all for it.
Sure. That'd be a hell of a world, wouldn't it?
A lot of high people sniping people out of trees or what?
Oh, jeez. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of, I don't know. I was thinking about that where, because there is no compromise, but I was just maybe pie in the sky thinking, what if there was compromise, and what would you be willing to do? What would you be willing to compromise with if honestly, there was something, in return?
This is the discussion that our representatives should be having, but they won't. They'll just, so our side's better. No, our side's better.
Well, and that goes back to what we were talking about, a lack of understanding. I mean, I am willing to bet that 90% of the people who aren't gun owners have no idea what the NFA even is. Or, I think the 1986 ban on, new machine gun manufacturers or manufacturing,
Well, that would be awesome if that got repealed.
Yeah, like I don't think there's any understanding of the laws that are on the books, and I think that goes back to your point about maybe those whatever laws are in the books aren't being enforced correctly or enforced enough.
When did Chicago do their concealed carry?
I believe it was 2014. It's been within the last 10 years. I mean, because it was a big deal.
I'd have to find another graph. Here's one from 1950 to 2000. Well, maybe this goes out. So let's just pick a year for me here.
2013.
10, 11, 12, 13. So there was...
Because that was when the Firearm Concealed Carry Act was enacted in July of 2013.
Okay, so that meant they're in a month average... Oh, no, sorry, per year. That was over 500 that year in Chicago.
500 homicides?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the next year it dropped to probably about 420.
Interesting.
So it dropped a little bit.
Uh-huh.
But in, what is that, 10, 11, 12, 13. In 16, it skyrocketed.
Really?
Like over 700.
Must have been a hot summer.
Yeah, the highest year looks like 75-ish. There was almost 1,000 in 1 year.
Wow, that's crazy. Because that's 3 a day almost.
That's pretty staggering.
Yeah, it's sad, man. So
yeah,
anyway,
per month. Well, this doesn't make sense because this is still a dark, but by month up to 1970 looks like in 1966 there were 72 homicides a month in Chicago.
Wow, that's insane.
72 a month. Wow, that's sad.
That is sad.
I think it's dropped since then.
Boy, I hope so. So, well, let's jump off the sad train, shall we?
Okay.
Let's jump off the sad train a little bit because I think we need to pick it back up a little bit.
Good idea.
So, some good news, exciting news, timely news. We are going to be podcasting live on September 28th.
It's going to be a party at the store.
It's going to be a party. Independence Indoor Shooting has the expo on September 28th, and you don't want to miss it if you're in town, or even a little bit of a drive. I think it'd be worth it. Perfect time to come see the store for the first time, but it's exciting. We're going to have a lot of vendors. We've done a live podcast before, and it was a big hit. So we're going to do it again.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, we're going to find
should be fun.
Some great people to talk to, some new vendors. One of the good things about of the assault weapons ban of 1994 sunsetting in 2004 was that there has been a lot of industry, growth and jobs and development.
Exponential.
I mean, I'd say the firearms world is, like you said, exponentially better as of a place than it was in 2004.
Yes.
Even 5 years ago, I would say.
And not just like in the equipment available, but the training that's available to anybody.
Yeah.
Like exponentially.
Yeah. And we've talked about it before in Idaho and specifically here in the Treasure Valley is you can't throw a stone without hitting a firearms manufacturer of one kind or another.
Yes, it's a great town.
So, a lot of folks are going to be there. It's going to be exciting. We're going to interview everybody. We'll do some Facebook Live.
It's going to be kind of a big deal.
And if you want to meet us, we'll be there.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting.
Make sure you bring donuts or pie or something.
Bring donuts or pie or something. Oh, boy.
I'll have a Bundaberg. Maybe I'll share some.
There you go. Bring some for everyone.
I don't know if I can afford some for everyone. Make the store buy it.
The first 12 people.
We could.
Yeah. So that's going to be exciting. Watch out for that. That's some exciting news. That'll be in 2 weekends.
Yep.
So mark your calendar for that.
It should be a good time. Last time we did this, that couldn't have been a year ago. That had to have been more than that, wasn't it? Or less than that.
I think it was the beginning of this year. We did one in the spring, and I think we've got this one in the fall. I think it's a twice a year thing.
Yeah, it was awesome last time. Like there was a lot going on. And if you guys have been to the store and been in the classroom area, like we had that packed full of vendors and
yeah, it was great. Jessica the honey badger was running the whole thing, being a boss, and we'll have her on again too to talk about what's new at the shop. Because, like I said before, I think people kind of take the summer off. You travel, you take vacations with the family, you go shoot outside, a lot of that kind of stuff. Now it's getting cooler out; the days are getting shorter, so kids are back in school. I think people will be kind of coming back to the range and being inside a little bit more.
Yeah. The other fun thing is we talked about that. Sorry, are you done talking about the store before I?
Oh yeah, gear? Yeah. No, we're great.
I know we're getting kind of long in time, but so my new pistol sight showed up today.
Oh, the Right-On.
Yeah, the new Right-On.
The Right-On pistol red dot, right?
Yeah, PDR or DR RD PR. I'm tired, dude. PRD.
PRD.
And I haven't even opened the box yet.
Really?
So I'll do a video. I'll put it on the Facebook page and kind of go through it. But it's still in the box. Believe it or not, I have not opened the box yet.
Really? I'm surprised you wouldn't have torn into that thing as soon as you got it.
It showed up at probably 10 o'clock this morning. Maybe a little later than that.
But you've had a crazy day, so.
Well, you want to hear about my day? You guys want to go in the weeds for just a second?
Oh, let's get it off your chest.
So I'm redoing my patio. Like I'm building a new patio and a pergola.
Okay.
And replace the back door. So
great.
I went to town to get some stain so I could stain all this stuff. I get thinking, well, I can't build the deck until I pull the old door out.
Right.
I got to pull the steps out. So I might as well replace the door. So
there's a process to this.
I start pulling the door out, and at some point I noticed that the door had leaked over the last 12 years.
Oh boy.
Mm-hmm. So now I have to tear out some hardwood floor.
Oh, great. Even better.
And I got to tear out some subfloor. So
even better. Wow.
So I told you, it's been a crazy day. So at least I got my new door back in before it's time to come podcasting. So
that's good. That's a good start.
I did get that far, but I thought I could just build my deck today and be done. No.
Yeah. Well, you got a little ambitious.
But here's the thing, right? Let's look at this as a parable.
Sure.
So in life, there's a lot of things that happen, and we think we got our day planned out, but we never know what's going to happen. Right?
Yeah.
So
you think you know how it's going to go.
Was I prepared to fix subfloor today? No. Did I even have it in my mind? No. So what are we doing in our lives? Like, are we carrying a tourniquet? Do we have the training, first aid training, in case we come up on a car accident?
Right.
Are we carrying our concealed in case we need to use it? Because I'd rather have it and not need it. So
that's
what
the
are
whole
we
goal,
doing?
yeah.
What are we doing in our lives to really prepare for the unforeseen things that we didn't think about?
Yeah, what are you doing mentally, you know?
You never know. Like, I could be at work and Yellowstone could pop, you know, and
interrupt.
And be able to get home. And I'll be screwed. No, you got to plan ahead. So on your off time, think about the worst case scenario and just kind of imagineer it before it really happens.
Well, and another point, you know, to that, at least you didn't expect to have to rip up the subfloor or anything like that, you know, but you do have the skills to be able to do it. Imagine not even having the skills to be able to do it.
That's true. That's true.
And how thankful were you to have that, you know, training and experience?
Well, my wife was way more thankful. and I actually didn't really swear that much today.
Oh, good.
Yeah, maybe not out loud anyways.
At least in your head. So, well, hey, that's a good parable. I enjoy that.
Well, good.
So let's get back into the bad news, because I got one more that's kind of interesting and local. So Albertsons, you know them, you love them.
Yeah.
They're all over the Treasure Valley because obviously they're a Boise-based company. They're all over the state, all over the country.
Are they still a Boise-based company?
I believe so. Okay. But they just came out and said that they're asking their customers not to open carry at their stores. Mm-hmm. Following kind of along with Walmart. Walmart's got a ban now, I think, on open carrying in their stores. It's store policy now, but Albertsons politely asking.
And here's the thing. So, like, Walmart, we think that's new, right? Walmart just decided.
Right.
Well, it turns out that they've been planning this for about 10 years. They've been working with Bloomberg and the anti-gun lobby for a long time. And that's why Hornady doesn't sell their ammunition to Walmart.
Oh, that's right. Hornady came out and said that.
They don't deal with Walmart. So this is how the Second Amendment, I think, is going to change. The writing in the Constitution will always be there. There's no way for them to repeal it.
Right.
But if they can get real corporate cronyism happening to where Walmart says, well, we're not going to allow guns in our store. We're not going to sell them. We're not going to have anything to do with them. And you're not allowed to carry. Well, now they're infringing on my right, but they're a private company. They
can do that. Yeah.
But now other stores are falling in line too. So obviously Sam's Club, which is part of Walmart, they say the same thing. Albertsons, Kroger's, there were some other ones too. I can't remember some of the other ones.
Yeah, Albertsons owns a bunch of different grocery stores around.
There's a lot going on. And I think you're going to find more following suit. My fear, and we've discussed this before, is now I have a whole big store of people that can't do anything.
It's a big gun-free zone.
If I'm a bad guy and I want to be rich and famous, well, not rich and famous, but I want to be known for the biggest mass casualty in Idaho Falls.
Right.
Guess what? I know where I'm going to go.
You know, right.
I'm not going to do that. I'm not saying that I'm going to shoot up a Walmart. That's not what I am saying. But how am I going to put this? They didn't say you can't conceal carry.
That is true. Because I think so Albertsons, the reason that they said that, you know, they're trying to ask people not to open carry is because they want their stores to feel safe and welcoming for all, so they respectfully ask customers not to openly carry firearms unless they are authorized law enforcement.
Yeah.
So kind of interesting. Yeah, Albertsons are across 34 states. You know, they own Jewel Osco back in Illinois, I believe, and a couple other.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they own all kinds of different grocery store brands.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. I thought Kroger owned Albertsons.
No, Kroger owns Fred Meyer and
Smith's.
A couple other ones. Yeah, I can't remember. There's so many.
You guys probably don't have Smith's
No.
There's a fly right here. That's what I was trying to get.
No, we do not. But
Yeah, there are a lot down in Utah.
But I mean, we've talked about, the pros and cons of open carrying, I think, versus concealed carry, and we're not really open carriers, so
not in public. Like if I'm outside, like in the woods or whatever, absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's a time and place for it, but it's a lot tougher to be a good steward of the Second Amendment, I think, if you're open carrying, especially if you're doing it just to prove a point.
Yes, which I think we both agree is kind of silly, anyways.
Yeah. So
counterintuitive.
Concealed means concealed.
That's right.
And
I may or may not still shop. Like there's a lot of, we're going to boycott Walmart. That's fine. You guys can do whatever you want.
Right.
You tell me how easy it is to not shop at a Walmart or an Albertsons.
Especially if that's one of your only options.
Yeah, it's almost impossible. Now, there's people that do it, and I respect that if you want to boycott.
Sure, but even Walmart didn't say, don't concealed carry, did they? Or is it completely gun-free now?
No, they said don't open carry.
Yeah.
They did not. I didn't see any verbiage anywhere that says do not carry guns at all.
Right. So, they're not saying don't concealed carry. They're just saying don't open carry, which, is that maybe, an infringement on your rights or whatever? Could be, but it's also a private company, private property. You're choosing to be there. It's their business,
They can absolutely do that.
Yep.
And that brings up another thing. They were talking about, we talked about what the worst thing would be is maybe a trespass.
Right.
Well, they were talking about changing that code nationally to being a felony.
Which would prohibit you from owning a gun.
Correctamundo.
Scary stuff.
So that brings us back to our last episode when I said be involved with your representatives and make your voice heard, because there's a lot of underhanded stuff happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Not the most positive episode we've ever done.
Hey, but that's okay. I had a Bundy and I got to talk to Mark.
There you go. But, let's end it this way and say, this is why you need to be a good steward of the Second Amendment, and you got to take people shooting, got to maintain a calm, level head, and you got to support your Second Amendment, organizations like the Firearms Policy Coalition, Second Amendment Alliance here in Idaho, Gun Owners of America. Those are the people that are, bringing lawsuits forward and litigation to make sure we're fighting for our rights.
And don't be scared to email or call your representatives. It's not that big a deal. In fact, we're going to have Chad Christensen, who's a local state representative, on here in a couple weeks. You're going to find out he's just a normal guy.
Yeah, and I think he'll have some insight into how to better communicate with your legislators.
Yeah. So don't be scared. They're not these gods that we put them on a pedestal to be. They're just regular people who work for us.
Yep, and that's also part of being, a good citizen, is being active in your political arena. And the thing is too, it starts locally. You don't have to necessarily start with your U.S. congressman or anything like that, or email the president. It can be talking in town halls or your local city council, things like that. That's where I think a good place to start would be.
Well, think about how some of these gun or the Second Amendment haven counties got. It's only because people got involved and said, "Hey, sheriff, this is how it is." And then your sheriff happens to be a like-minded individual that makes these sanctuary cities for the Second Amendment.
Right.
That's a local thing.
Yeah. So the message here is that don't necessarily feel helpless. You do have some things you can do to help the cause. It
does seem overwhelming.
Sure. And scary.
And I think that's kind of the way that the opposition wants it to feel.
Sure.
They don't want. I really think that common sense is the majority. True common sense is a majority in this country. And I think even it crosses the bounds even into the Democrat Party or Libertarians, or whatever. There's still some good common sense people that understand the Constitution and want to preserve it.
Yeah, gun ownership and Second Amendment supporters are not restricted to one political party or one religion, creed, anything like that. It's all kinds of people, all walks of life.
Mm-hmm.
Look online. There's all kinds of personalities and kind of gun celebrity types that are of all different kinds.
I think I've made this comment before. I made the mistake of throwing a Hillary comment out one time when I was trying to sell a gun, and the guy was a registered Democrat that voted for Hillary.
See, and there you go.
It didn't turn out very good for me.
Yeah, so I think that's another thing too, is try to unite as gun owners. Whether you agree with somebody politically or not on other issues. I think finding what you can agree on, I think is a good starting point too.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I think we'll close on that for now. And also we do have some exciting episodes coming up as well. Next week we're going to have. Why don't you tell them, Steve?
So we have Justin, who you guys might recognize his voice. He used to work for Ride On Optics, but he's going to come on and he's going to hang out with us with his Krav Maga instructor. We're going to talk about alternative self-defense.
Right.
And Krav is pretty cool.
It's pretty serious. So we'll learn all about that. Because, even though it's a firearms-based podcast, it's good to have some more tools in your belt. Like why we talked to Adam Boyce and a couple other folks. So that'll be exciting. He said, Chad Christensen will be on. We'll get a little political with him, learn kind of the ins and outs of that scene. And we've got our expo coming up as well. We'll be podcasting live.
Yes. So please tune in and have fun. Come in and see us, say hi. Tell us why you hate Mark.
why Steve's right about everything.
Which I was right about everything.
Yeah. And if you have any episode suggestions or something you want to hear, make sure you email us podcast@iishooting.com or, hit us up on Facebook or Instagram at Range Minded Podcast. We love getting feedback from you and making the podcast better for you. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're here to help you.
We sure are. So, but we'll close on that for now, and we will talk to you next time. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
See ya. Thanks for listening to Range Minded. Find us online at Range Minded Podcast on Facebook, or send us an email at podcast@iishooting.com. We're always happy to get feedback, episode suggestions, whatever you want to send us, really. And be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and pretty much wherever else you get your podcasts from. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.